Hello, everyone, you beautiful stars of the morning. This is Courtney here, and we have Zach that I'm interviewing today. Zach is going to be a part of an entire series of guests that are going to be here during this summer because I'm planning a huge holistic fair in September. And Zach is one of the first ones who has signed up. He has Guys, okay, so he took emotional code and he blew it up to a whole new level of greatness. And he is one of the healers that will be there. Um, I will be talking about it a lot. Natural New Earth Market coming in September down in Ringgold, Georgia, right under Chattanooga. So we are here to talk to Zach. Hello, Zach.
Hello, Courtney. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Um, I have to ask, because I ask everybody, regardless if it's the event or not, what is like your definition of awakening?
I think that metaphor fits what it is perfectly. But to me, awakening is seeing reality for what it is rather than what you thought it to be. And I believe that happens in little increments over time. But ultimately, excuse me, ultimately, we're waking up. We're seeing our world through a new lens, and hopefully that lens brings us more peace and joy and prosperity and so on.
Yeah. And I do want to tell the audience Zach has been a little under the weather lately. So thank you for participating here. And he's going to do the best he can. Um, I think you are the first person, Zach, to say that it comes in little increments. I think you're the first to say, and I do believe that can happen as well. Increments and big, huge awakenings, they can happen in so many ways. Um, was your awakening a part of starting to work with the emotion code? Because I know you started first with the emotion code. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. So emotion code was definitely a part of my waking up. It wasn't, in my opinion, it wasn't the beginning, but it was definitely a part of it.
Okay.
Um, Emotion code deals with, it was written and developed by a chiropractor named Dr. Bradley Nelson, and it deals with releasing the body of trapped emotions, as he calls them, which are really just unresolved emotional energies that we all carry with us. And those energies are a detriment to us because they reside within the body and create tension and ultimately dis-ease within the body.
Right.
So if we can unburden the body and release these emotions and get them out of our field and out of our energy, then we are going to operate more optimally. So
Okay. So, wow. I guess I asked you a two-part question because now my mind's all over the place. The awakening part for you already happened, and then this was just an extra little side note in your journey. We're gonna just keep going with the emotion code. Um, so all is energy. That's what it's implying too, is that all is energy. And so when we have negative energy, it gets trapped in
yeah,
our body.
yeah, and I don't want to present the premise that all negative energy is always going to become trapped, but it's way more likely that you're going to trap a negative energy rather than, you know, when people are happy, they let it show. You know, they go hug their buddy, do high fives, and they're smiling, and energy just radiates out of them.
Right.
And there's several reasons for it, but society is not set up for the display or even the processing of negative energies because it's not socially acceptable. And so because of that, we tend to bottle this stuff up, we hold it within, and it ends up just being harbored within us, and we cram it down in our knees and our hips and wherever, you know, in our shoulders. And ultimately we kind of forget that it's there, kind of like the stuff in the back of the closet that you don't, you know, see on a daily basis. And then it ends up causing us pain and tension and emotional pain as well, you know, depression, anxiety, all that kind of stuff.
So I do want to tell the audience I had interviewed Zach before for a prior podcast, and I actually went through this process. It opened my eyes. You know, it's funny because you said awakening in steps, right? Well, by the time I went and saw you, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know all my baggage. Oh yeah, I know what's happened. I know I've released, you know, as so many people say, okay? Because we do, we think we did it all. We think we worked through it all. I mean, it's natural, like, yes, and then when I went and got it done with you, I do have to say, guys, I went, what depression, Zach? I'm not a depressed person. And you were able to like really pinpoint things. So can you explain to me how exactly it works? And then we should just use me as an example when we kind of go back to, you know, going into the details. You have created a new, I guess it's a modality from, I don't know if that's the right term.
No, that's an excellent word for it. And I
Okay.
was going to say you're transitioning into my system now.
Yeah.
So yes, I call it an alternative healing modality.
Okay.
And the name that I've given it is Shadow Cycle Healing. So
I like that name.
so but what I discovered, and first of all, just to touch on what you said a minute ago, is that is one thing that Shadow Cycle Healing has taught me, is that there's always something to work on. There's always room for improvement.
Right.
So, and I kept, like, when I first got into motion code, like, I drove myself nuts at first, because I sat down, I was like, I'm gonna do so much emotion code on myself that I'm gonna turn myself into this guru and not have any problems, and life's gonna be perfect. And that's not what happened. You peel back one layer, and then you see the layer underneath, and then you peel back another and another. And yes, it does help, and life gets smoother, and you're able to cope with bigger stresses, and you know, you're not in tension in your relationships as much, and so on. But there's always going to be room for improvement and something to work on and a different avenue to grow in. So but that being said, so my system, Shadow Cycle Healing, what I discovered sort of early on in my emotion code training is that this idea sort of came to me. It didn't come all at once, but the idea, when I first started, came to me. I thought, well, if we're releasing the body of these emotions, these emotional energies that are detrimental, like, why are we having these negative emotions to begin with? You know,
Like the root of it, like the core of it, or?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm always, my mind is always like, how does stuff work? How are things put together? It's sort of mechanical. And so I wanted to know the source of these negative emotions. And what I ultimately discovered and again, this is all sort of just my opinion, but I've yet to tell this to someone and them argue with me and say, no, that's not the way it works. But what I've found is that emotions are the tip of the shadow of the mind, or in some cases, like, to me, shadow and subconscious are sort of interchangeable. They are a little bit different, but for this conversation, if you hear me say subconscious, it's your shadow. And if you hear me say shadow, it's your subconscious. But So anyways, if you think of the mind as an iceberg, okay, above the water line, you've got this smaller portion of the iceberg, and the much bigger portion of the iceberg is down below the surface, right?
Right.
Okay, and the portion of the iceberg above the water is your conscious mind, okay? It's roughly 10% of our mind, and the portion below the water, roughly 90% of our mind, is subconscious, okay? And right near the surface of the water are your negative and or unresolved emotions or trapped emotions, whatever you want to call them, okay? And they're most easily perceived by your conscious mind because they're right there,
right there.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So I said to myself, like, why are we having these negative emotions to begin with? And so what I discovered was this chain effect going down to what I found the core to be. And so you got your negative emotions or unresolved emotions here, okay? And right below that is your ego patterns, okay? What most people call the ego.
Zach, let me just, I want to verify that I'm following and so other people can follow. The program you made, what's the name of it again? Because I hadn't heard that before.
That's okay. I call it Shadow Cycle Healing because
Shadow Cycle
yeah,
yes.
this stuff happens in a cyclical manner,
Right.
keeps us trapped in a way.
Right. And so you're actually working with the subconscious, which is so beautiful and amazing. And so iceberg, we get it. Like, okay, there's a little bit on top. Our emotions are here at the water. But that we all know as educated people, the iceberg below the water is so much bigger. And you're now going to explain like kind of like the
layers.
Discovering this huge iceberg below, the layers of that subconscious iceberg.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's really, in my mind, it's the structure of the subconscious mind and or again the shadow.
Okay.
So you've got negative or unresolved emotions, and those come from your ego pattern. The reason you have these negative emotions to begin with, the reason you generate them, because we're the one that generates all of our emotions. Our emotions don't come from outside of us anywhere. So you generate these emotions as a result of your ego patterns. And your ego patterns are basically an unnatural operating system, okay? Our natural state is love and peace and harmony and so on, okay? And we deviate into these ego patterns when we're triggered. Any of us do. And like I said, they're unnatural patterns, and these patterns, I've discovered 14 of these patterns.
Whoa.
And they are basically one side is set up to protect us, to push away and resist more pain and more discomfort. And the excuse me, the other side is set up to that.
How about I talk for just a moment, Zach? Catch your breath. So I do have people that listen that, you know, not everybody necessarily thinks ego is a bad thing. And I'm one of those people as well. I don't think ego is necessarily bad unless it has blown up out of proportion. It has been in overdrive because of survival, because of this, because of that, that it's had to and I have videos about this, guys, out there, that when ego is unbalanced, uncleansed, kind of taking over, it's it ends up driving the bus. And then the more it's driving the bus and the more there's stuff in its way or more stuff that is bothering it, it's going to just keep building and building and getting more aggressive and more aggressive, or trying to survive. I always say arms up. Whenever I'm coughing too much, I try to say arms up, get your arms up, get those airways going, arms up. This is fine. You know, people love reality. And this, you coughing, you having the allergies that are happening in the world down here. Oh yeah. Um, so I did want to make that distinction though, that like no one can actually get rid of their ego. But so many of us actually, it's been damaged, it's been hurt, it's been, you know, and it's, for a lot of people, it's been driving the bus too long, it's been driving the car, you know. So you have 14. We don't have to go through all 14, but you were starting to say one category big time is survival. Like, I'm going to push everything away because I have to protect myself.
Yes. So, oh, man. So yeah. So basically, half of the 14 patterns are resistance, pushing away pain and discomfort,
Okay.
and the other half of the 14 patterns are an attempt to gain and receive more love, affection, security.
Oh.
So and that was a great point. I totally agree with you on the ego. It's a common misperception, and I used to do this myself. I used to think I gotta kill my ego. I gotta get rid of it. I gotta dissolve it. And that's not the idea. The idea ultimately is to integrate it,
Yeah.
and to know that it's a part of you, because it is, and love it and accept it.
Yeah. It's
You
actually, I believe it's one of the best God-given tools that we have, because it's really designed to be like, oh, that's danger over there, go this way. It's really there to point out things to help us. But once again, there's probably not a single person alive now that it didn't get damaged at some point. Bullying in school, issues at home, whatever it was. Um, so Zach, with the emotion code, I know you do like a muscle test. How does that, oh, poor Zach, um, he does like a muscle test to communicate with the subconscious. Oh, are you gonna make it, sweetheart?
I think I am. Yes, I apologize, but
And also, guys, we're recording this later in the night when Zach and I probably be sitting and relaxing and trying to go to sleep. So poor Zach, what a trooper, buddy. Um, how does the muscle test relate to communicating with the subconscious to identify what layer and situations going on with the ego?
man, I'm sorry, guys. So the muscle testing is a way to have a conversation. It's a yes or no conversation with the body and or the subconscious mind. It's basically a means to bypass the conscious mind, because again, all of this stuff is harbored within our subconscious mind or our shadow, and it's not known to the conscious mind. That's why people, when they get triggered, they launch into these patterns, and afterwards, you know, when things calm down, they're like, why was I such an a-hole to my wife? You know, why was I acting like that? It's unconscious behavior that's ingrained in us. And it's also the reason why we get in these cycles. Like, you'll hear people say, well, I always seem to date the same person no matter what, you know, and that's just kind of an easy example for me. But that's a cycle that person is living out. And their conscious mind can't identify that cycle, but yet it's hidden in their shadow. So the muscle testing is it's purely a means. I mean, it's an amazing tool, but it's purely a means to bypass, excuse me, the conscious mind to get that information from the subconscious.
Okay, so guys, I'll give you a personal example from my story when I was with Zach. Um, as I've said many a times on my program, that my default emotion, as I always thought, and I still kind of do, my default emotion is anger, period. Well, then I'm with Zach, right? And Zach's doing everything with me, and everything was like depression, depression, depression. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I might blow everything up. I might punch things, but I'm not depressed. And of course, as we start going on, I will tell you, it's not just like those 14 areas. It also then goes into like more of the root of the matter, like my depression that really I show in behavior wise as anger stems from and Zach nailed it. I mean, I never really paid attention, stemmed from being dissatisfied or disappointed. Sorry, disappointed. I had, and it was a constant disappointed that now, as Zach doesn't know, because we haven't actually really talked since then much. Um, Now every time I'm real angry, now I have to go, okay, Courtney, what are you fearful about? What are you sad about? Um, are you disappointed about anything, Courtney? Like I have to ask myself that constantly. Are you disappointed with anything? And I swear, just asking myself that question, Zach, opened up a whole new avenue of healing for me. Because then I can pinpoint it and go, yeah, I'm disappointed. Yeah, I'm disappointed with society and everybody. And like, I'm disappointed. So for me, that level of going that in depth to, okay, what I thought was always just anger. No, Courtney, that's actually depression. And then going even deeper, depression out of disappointment. And I've been able to use it because it's not like everything's removed. It's not like, but the awareness has made me be able to, I mean, there were things removed when I was with you, of course, but the awareness of how deep that ran with me. Because now that I can ask myself that question, then I can go, okay, can you accept that you're disappointed? Yeah, I can accept I'm disappointed. Do you have to be angry about it? Do you have to be depressed about it? No, no, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And I can accept whoever or whatever for what it is. But it took going to you, Zach, to be able to identify that.
Yeah, and that's awesome. What I hear you saying is you're able to bring your conscious attention to those things now, where before you
Oh, yeah.
weren't.
No,
Um,
not at all.
and I do want to say, not that I want to discredit myself, but I'm really not the one discovering these things and pointing them out to people, because I'm just doing the muscle testing and talking to the person's body or subconscious mind. So it's whatever that person is ready to deal with at that time and is ready and has the capacity physically, emotionally, mentally
Yeah.
to address at that time, that the subconscious will then bring up and say, hey, this is ready for your attention. So I was really only the magic in the fact that I put the system together.
I was going to just say that. No, Zach, you put now, how did you put the system together? Because I'm giving your credit back to you, Zach. Don't take credit away. Because your system really, really, and I'll use another example here in a minute, but how did you know, did you use your guides or was just you tapped into your subconscious? How did you create this system?
I don't know 100%.
That's okay.
Um, all I can really tell you, it took me about 7 months to develop a working model, and write it all out and diagram it. And it was sort of just a process of, I would start thinking on something, and it was almost like I was just downloading information, and it would just
Okay.
and all of a sudden I knew, I was like, this is how it works. This button, or this lever trips that, and that creates this chain effect, and it all goes from there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, should I move on to the next layer?
Well, no, I don't want to
No?
stick so much on layers. People got to come and got to contact you, know more about the layers, Zach.
Okay.
What I find interesting, because okay, so when you did me, you were still taking free people to, build and create like a portfolio of, this is success rate, this is averages, this is okay. Which
Yeah.
I love the fact that you are open to receiving downloads and open to just go with the flow, because that flow has created something wonderful. It really has. And here's another example, guys. Supposedly one of those downloads, and you had told me this, was write down, was there trauma in the womb? And you told me like, whoa, I have to question that. Are you sure? Like if there's, or pre-birth trauma type stuff. Was there
Okay.
something there? And you weren't sure, but you said, I'm going to write it down anyways. I was your first person that showed up on, that there was trauma in the womb that left such an impact. And so I'm using examples instead of going through all of the 14 layers to show people, no, this goes deep. This goes way bigger than most people can go. Because most people don't even think about that, Zach. Most people don't think that there's, so my story, ladies and gentlemen, is my mom, well, my dad, let's just say my dad beat the hell out of my mom and threw her down a flight of stairs like 4 days prior to my birth. And the only reason it was 4 days prior is because she started throwing up horribly for 4 days, but she didn't go to the hospital because she's all beat up. Finally, she was like, I got to get to the hospital. She called them and they're like, yeah, you need to come. I came spilling out about a half an hour later. I was done. I didn't want to deal with it anymore. But what I didn't tell you, Zach, was not just that trauma. From working with you and working through that kind of trauma, I also at that time was born with it was oh, when are you yellow? What's the one that jaundice?
John, yeah.
It was a weird type of jaundice because the umbilical cord had ripped. So it was like my blood and my mom's blood was mixing, and that shouldn't have been happening or something. And everything was all messed up. So I was extremely jaundiced. And I had to be in an incubator, or in a light box for 4 days. Nobody could touch me. 4 days, which is a very long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, while working with you and realizing the impact of in the womb trauma and releasing that, I then, after that experience, went, oh my goodness, now as an adult going, you weren't held for 4 days and you were in just straight light for 4 days, Courtney. And I'll tell you, I don't think creators, I don't think healers really know the impact. I don't think they know the scope. And I'm also offering this to everybody, not to speak of my story, but to speak of how the healing process can come in layers, especially when you work with someone like Zach, and he can go so deep and pinpoint something so I never thought actually really affected me. Well, then I will tell you, it dawned on me, oh my goodness, now as an adult, thinking that was a baby. That's a baby that never even got touched for 4 days. Babies, that on my 40th birthday, with Reiki, how you can go back and forth in time, you can kind of jump around. On my 40th birthday, I went back to that baby and under the light. And there I was like, I know you're fighting. I know you can't stand it here already. I know this. Keep going. Just keep going. No matter what you do, keep going. And so I have this lovely moment, then I even cry even more release based off of just all the healing. And then Zach, it dawned on me even a day later, oh my goodness, what if that baby Courtney did keep fighting because it knew I showed up? Like adult Courtney. So why I say this is not to do all my story, but to go, okay, he's got 14 layers, people.
Well,
Yeah.
and well, so the 14 is all in your ego patterns. So there's more layers to your subconscious mind.
Oh my goodness.
Shadow, but there's not 14. The 14 is patterns, the unnatural patterns that we can operate.
Okay.
So and again, so I got to that layer and I said to myself, well, why would we operate in these patterns? There's got to be a reason for it.
Love it.
So I figured out that the reason for the ego patterns is your limiting beliefs. So your limiting beliefs is basically you at some point when you get hurt, you label yourself, someone else, a group of people, or the environment as a whole as being wrong. Okay. And because you did so, you say, you got hurt, you experienced pain or discomfort of some kind, and you said to yourself, well, that was wrong, that was dangerous, to my existence, because your subconscious and your subconscious mind, its primary goal, you kind of hinted at this earlier.
Yeah.
Its only objective is to keep you alive one more day,
Yeah.
one more minute, one more hour, whatever. And so it says, okay, I experienced danger and discomfort. That was bad. That was wrong.
Right.
So that's why the pattern develops, the ego pattern. It says, well, since that was wrong, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D from now on to keep that pain from happening again. Do you follow me on that?
Yeah, no, I forgot that part. And yeah. Oh my God. I'm just getting excited because man, I kind of want another treatment, I guess. I was getting excited because it's like, you kind of had me at ego, and now you're like, now you have these limited belief patterns. Oh my goodness. Hey, can I ask? I remember there was a section in there, and maybe it's in this section, maybe there's more sections, that we absorb other people's energies or thought patterns.
Yeah.
Like I learned I absorbed a lot of my dad's, which would completely make sense. Is that in the limiting belief patterns? Because that actually a lot of them were hit.
So you're right, that can be with limiting beliefs. I have a whole chart of what I call energy classifications, and some of them came from emotion code because you do classify emotional energies to some extent, but about half of them I developed myself because I figured out that there was just these things existed. But all of these, I'm going to call them all of these segments, no matter what you call them, if it's ego pattern, a limiting belief, or an emotion, it's all unresolved energy, okay? And they all can fall into one category or another. And you're right, some of them are absorbed. Absorption is, you mentioned the womb. When we're in the womb, we're directly connected to our mother, physically through the umbilical cord. And then there's a very strong emotional and energy as well. And so a lot of absorption can happen then, even though it doesn't have to happen in the womb. It can happen with a significant other, with a parent and child relationship, with really good friends. So there's several, maybe like 10 different classifications. Some of the other ones are like inherited or genetic baggage that we get from parents. And it's a lot of it's not even from our parents. Some of it goes back 10 generations or more. It's just being passed down to us, and we're carrying this negative energy around that we're not even aware of, that happened generations ago, but yet it's keeping us from living a fulfilled life and aspiring to meet our dreams. So there's, I mean, the one thing that I do love about my system is it's very universal and very non-confining. Stuff can come from almost anywhere.
Yeah.
So for me to try and pigeonhole it and say, no, it can only happen this way, that's just limiting. That would be a limiting belief.
So we have ego, limiting beliefs, emotions. Is there another category?
There's one more layer to the subconscious mind. Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
So the last layer, the deepest layer of the iceberg that we began the analogy with, is what I call your core void. Okay. And we can have, and not that there's just one of these, people have many of these, maybe hundreds of these. To be honest, I don't really know how many a person may have or not. But the way you want to think of this core void is it's the original wound or the original pain that you experience. And the reason I refer to it as a core void is, number one, it's the core issue. It's where it all starts. And then number two, I use the word void because it's devoid of life. It is the essence of negative energy. And not that I want to paint the picture of negative energy as being evil or maybe even demonic. I'm not going there. I'm just saying it's the opposite, the exact opposite of life. The only thing that can spawn from a core void is more pain, more discomfort, more agony, more striving, all of the stuff that we want to avoid in life. Right. But yet we unknowingly harbor these wounds. It's like having an open wound on your arm and you're not doing this consciously. Again, this is all subconscious, but I have this open wound on my arm and I don't let it heal because I'm constantly, bugging it or whatever. Yeah. Then if somebody even comes close to brushing up against my arm, I'm going to wig out. I'm going to protect myself. Okay. Yeah. That's the same way our mind works, is we have these wounds in our mind, and our mind knows that if we're going to get triggered, it automatically launches into protection mode. So let me sidestep for 1 second. Go ahead. Let's explain this from the inside out now that we've gone from the outside in, okay? So you get this, let me take one drink here. Sorry. Yeah, no, I think everybody right now is just taking it all in. So we're all going, what triggers me? What triggers me? Where am I cut? Do I even bump it? Or I just jam stuff in there? Like, we're all thinking stuff. It's okay. Take your moment. Okay. So if we have this core wound, so let's just use an example. I believe most of these core voids occur in childhood. Yeah. Although, again, even I'm trying to think if I've ever seen this or not, but I got to believe it's possible. I got to believe that a core void could be generational. I kind of think I handed down. So anyways, so you have this wound that you experience. I guess the reason I brought up the origin is because let's just say that it happens in childhood as an easy example.
Right.
You know, maybe you're learning to ride your bike and you fall down and you skin your knee, and then your dad comes over and lectures you because you weren't, you know, following the advice that he gave you. Okay. And so the original wound or the core void is you feeling that hurt or that rejection or that disapproval from the dad of being disciplined and being scolded, right? Okay, that's now you've got this core void. Now you've got this mental wound in your subconscious mind, all right? And then because of that, so your mind goes, man, that hurt. I can't experience that again. Let's not do that. So your mind goes to the scenario, analyzes it, and says, okay, was I wrong? Was my dad wrong? Was the bike wrong? Was the road wrong? Whatever. And it picks out something and it says, okay, dad was wrong because he rejected me, because he made me feel pain. Okay. So now we're to your limiting belief.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. Okay. So then again, because you labeled something as wrong, you now say, okay, now I know what hurt me and what was bad. Let's not let that happen again. So let's go into an ego pattern.
Yeah.
Your mind essentially develops or chooses this ego pattern to then operate in. Again, it's an unnatural operating state. Okay. It's not a state of love. It's not a state of harmony. All right. And we say, okay, I'm going to do this, this, and this from now on, and everything will be perfect, and I won't have any more pain, and dad won't reject me anymore. Okay. And so again, now we've covered core void, that's the original wound, limiting belief, and now we're to ego pattern layer. Okay. And so now that you're operating in this ego pattern, and I didn't say this at the beginning, but these ego patterns are kind of crazy. I believe that you can be in an ego pattern for 5 minutes, or you might be in an ego pattern for 50 years.
Yeah.
It all depends on if you recognize it or not, or if somebody snaps you out of it or whatever. So anyway, so you're in this unnatural operating system and you're doing all these preventatives to not get rejected from your dad again. Well, because of that, because you're not in your natural state, you're now going to generate all these negative emotions. You're going to feel resentment towards your dad for rejecting you. And you're going to feel disapproval and disappointment and depression and whatever, you name it. Okay. I'm just giving examples here.
Can I interrupt? Because so if all those patterns start happening, this is all unfolding and we're living that out in our day-to-day life. And this is really happening in the subconscious. That also perverts our perception. It's got to pervert. So therefore, because I felt dad rejected me at one point, dad's always going to, reject me now. Like that's how I'm going to start seeing it. And then it might not be just dad. It might be authority figures. It could be bosses. It could be masculine energy. I'm going to start perceiving it that way. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you're spot on. Yes.
Wow.
And again, that's why I call it shadow cycle healing, because it generates this cyclical pattern that just feeds on itself. And we operate in this without even knowing it. And we end up in these scenarios where we find ourselves in total misery, in pain and agony, mentally and physically. And I've done it so many times where I'm like, how the heck did I get here? Yeah. Why am I so miserable? But yet you can't put it all together. You can't figure it out because you're just living out this cycle. And you're absolutely right. It taints our perception of reality. We end up seeing this skewed picture of what we think reality is, that there's this big bad world out there that might hurt us. And so we're constantly doing this, or we're constantly grabbing, trying to find love in the things that do give us pleasure. And we can't really see things as they are neutrally.
Yeah, I have to say, Zach, that's exactly what was going on with me when I brought up the scenario before that you pinpointed. No, Courtney, you're actually, this is depression because of my sight. I took it in as, oh, all of this I should be angry about. Just period. That's it. Black and white. I should be pissed off about all of this. When really, because of what my heart really is, I was actually really sad. I was really sad, hurting for whatever the situation may be. But because of all these layers, I saw it as, oh, no, you're pissing me off. And not, you're pissing me off, but it was because of disappointment. Disappointment of, well, everybody else walking around with these issues. You know what I mean? And how we treat each other because of this stuff. And I find it interesting that you have this program here, you have this stuff here. When the word trigger became extremely popular, as if, just in general society, oh, if you're triggered, oh, triggered, oh, triggered. And for a long time I was like, geez, how is that happening? How is everybody being triggered 24/7? But literally, with stuff like this, yeah, we could be getting triggered a lot, because that's just one example. You fell off your bike and dad wasn't there to comfort you, and he yelled at you, scolded you. Yeah. One scenario, one little thing. Now take a lifetime, take an entire childhood. And then I was thinking, when you were talking, it's interesting because when we're kids, we do all these things for the approval, for the, but then by the time we're a teen, that might flip to, oh no, I hate you, Father, and I'm going to go out and rebel, and I'm going to do this. That creates a whole nother level of more cycles.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, we could be living in a world that everyone's triggered every moment of the day. Zach, I don't know. I think the benefit from this is so vast. What has been your experience with people like myself that went through it? Have they reported back to you on, because like I said, that's why I was telling a story, like, Zach, I never even got to tell you I had this huge release, and then I'm talking to me as a baby, and maybe I'm still here because I did that, because you did this, and blah, like, I'm here because of you, Zach. Like that type of thing. Have you had any good I'm sure you have, but what's the normal or usual, hey, thank you for this because it opened my eyes, it cleansed my eyes, my perception, and now I can actually work with deprogramming my subconscious. I can, do stuff like that. Have you gotten a lot of good feedback?
I've gotten some really good feedback, and it's funny. I was thinking about this before the interview. I'm sort of bad in the fact that my mind tends to forget stuff like that. But the examples I can give you is I did, and I can't promise these same results with anyone. Right. But I did one session with one lady, and she claims that one session eliminated her anxiety completely. Oh. Like, I don't get anxious anymore. And I was like, really? And I didn't really get into specifics with her, like what is that to her, but just the fact that she told me I don't get anxious anymore, I was like, that's amazing. So
Yeah, it might be, Zach. There's a lot to be said with you just helping people become aware.
well,
I
and
mean, awareness is huge.
that's what this is all about. I mean, the way to heal this stuff is to bring conscious awareness to it. And
Right.
that's where 90% of the healing takes place,
Yes. Yeah.
acknowledging these things.
Right.
So I did three. So normally the goal during one session is to eliminate one shadow cycle. Okay.
Okay.
I did 3 sessions, which eliminated may not be the PC world and the energy world for this, but where we resolved 3 shadow cycles with my wife, focused on one issue. Okay. And from that, she dropped 15 pounds, at least a minimum of 15 pounds,
Yeah.
changing anything. She didn't change her diet. She didn't exercise more, nothing. So this stuff, it does impact our physical as well. Another interesting case scenario is my youngest daughter is she'll be 3 at the end of next month. She was about 2.5 when we did this session on her. And I forget exactly what we focused on, but the problem we were seeing is she would get overly upset about things, and she would yell at everybody. When she'd get upset, she'd say, leave me alone, and just yell at us. And so I want to do another session with her on it because it's not fully resolved yet. But after one session, and I even talked to my wife about this, and I was like, tell me I'm not crazy here. And she agreed with me. The issue was resolved by at least 90%. I mean, she still gets upset at times. Okay. I mean, she's a 3-year-old, kids get upset. But like, I can't remember the last time that she got upset and yelled, leave me alone at us anymore.
Yeah. I remember when she was, yeah. Um, as a father doing that with her, I'm glad you're open to, I mean, because it could have been something you did, Dad. Could have been something Mom did, Dad.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's humbling at times because we've done sessions on both of my girls, and at times you discover the source of what it was, and it was you, and you've got to humble yourself
Yeah,
and realize that, okay, I inflicted that
I
pain
did that. Yeah.
and I got to do stuff different from now on.
Wow. I gotta say, I mean, I give you props for being a strong enough parent to do. That's a lot of parent issues. They don't, especially when the kids are that young. It's like, oh, that's just terrible twos. That's just you know, the 4-year-olds running around. You know, um, but it oftentimes isn't. It is something the parents said, did, that we're, as adults, we're just trying to do the best. So I got to give you kudos for being open to at least exposing it as, okay, I did this. I did this for, and helping your daughter. Wow. Wow. So you can do it on kids that young, huh?
So yeah, I guess I don't know what the age would be. To actually muscle test on a child, they'd have to have the cognitive awareness to know what the muscle testing is all about and so on.
Right.
So when we work on, I mean, even when we work on my now 6-year-old, I'm testing surrogately through my wife or sometimes myself
Okay.
to reveal these things. So
Gosh, could you imagine if all of us, by the time we were like 6 years old, somebody was like, listen, this is your core void. and, and we're gonna help you get through this. Let's work with your subconscious. You're aware of it now, so let's start changing it instead of waking up all of a sudden and being like, whoa. um, wow, Zach. So I'm trying to think, it's like I'm excited, but I'm also like, I'm trying to think, did I expose the greatness enough? Like, did I get people to really understand? Like, because I read his book, The Emotion Code.
Motion code.
I shouldn't say I read it. I thumbed through it.
You cheated.
Yeah, yeah. And it just like I got the concept. I loved the idea that yes, emotions, energy, all is energy can get trapped in the body. And I did understand all the concepts, but it felt like it just left me there. Or I should say, I kind of felt like, oh, this is good for those who didn't go through anything. You see, like, which I hate saying it that way, but I growing up the way I did, I always felt ego that, I had more going on, I got more baggage, I got more drama, I got more of this damage. And when I did yours, getting down to that core void, getting through the emotions, getting through everything, um, and what was also interesting, pretty much, if I remember correctly, most of my ego was survival. Even if it was something that had nothing to do with survival, somewhere it was kind of attached to it.
Yeah.
Because it was all these patterns that stemmed from survival. And so I do want to say, guys, I do want to declare that are you allied in alchemy? And this is the program? Because I want to get the right.
Yeah. So yeah, my business is Allied in Alchemy, and I offer two services. One being I'm certified in emotion code, and then secondly, I developed my own healing modality, Shadow Cycle Healing.
Okay, that's where I was getting lost at the beginning, but I was like, okay, I'll just get back to it.
So yeah, but to touch on what you were saying, I mean, number one, so it's, I think if I can put words in your mouth,
Yeah.
what I hear you saying is emotion code is not going to resonate with everyone, just like Reiki isn't, and so on. And emotion code really got me started, and it did resonate with me. When I sat down and read the book, I read it through twice in a row over a weekend, an extended weekend, because I'm a slow reader. But I was just enthralled with it. And the second point I want to make is I love emotion code. It is extremely valuable, and it is functional, simple, and effective. And I think my system, Shadow Cycle Healing, is all those things as well. The place to me where emotion code falls short is, in my opinion, I can do an emotion code session on myself or someone else, and 2 weeks later, I'm thoroughly convinced that they're pretty much going to be generating those same emotions all over again.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because yes, we release that emotional baggage from them, but we didn't address the source of what and why they are generating those negative emotions.
Right.
So that's, to me, it was very, I mean, hopefully people are getting the scope of this, listening to this, but it was very revolutionary for me to discover this chain effect of why all this comes about. And like, again, I'm a kind of person that I want to know, I want to get to the root issue.
Yeah, me too.
If I've got something going on, I don't want to just take a pill and forget about it.
Yeah, I want
to fix it. And so to know that I could address all these things and completely relieve my life of them was extraordinary for me at first. And I wanted to go crazy with it. So
I know you're talking, Zach. He does not stop pawing at me. Samson, say hello to the people.
hey,
Say hello to the people. That's why I keep moving, and I apologize. He is
you're
pawing.
fine.
He probably needs the OUT. We don't say the word.
He's a handsome fellow.
Zach, and that's exactly what I meant. Like you heard the words coming out of my mouth. I knew in order for me to really be fixed or be on my way, like really on my way, because I had already done a lot of work as well. Guys, that's so I do Akashic Record readings. So many times in those readings, I'll be telling someone, well, you really have to, and it's not me, it's from the records, blah, 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 blah. I'm delivering the message. And there's so many times they go, oh, I already did that. I've already taken care of that. Or, oh, yeah, that's healed up. I'm fine. The records are not going to lie. Like the records are trying to have me tell you, okay, no, there's still a lot there. But usually because somebody will, I don't know, read a book or take a course or some, and they're not feeling it to the amount that they were feeling it before. Like I thought I got rid of tons of my anger. I really did in my 20s and 30s. I mean, I thought I purged tons of anger. And then it started creeping up and creeping up and creeping up and creeping up. And I'm creeping up to 40. You know what I mean? Like I thought this was way done. And then I see Zach and it's like, no, Courtney, this is actually not even anger. This is depression. And it's depression out of this. And it's because of this. And it's actually a pattern of perception and how you're thinking, doing, and living. And it was like, wow, okay. So that's what I mean. There's so many people and I love them. I really do love everyone who is putting the work forth and trying to heal and trying to do better. But I think a lot of people, like how you just said, only take it so far. And even when I do a records reading, it's like the records aren't lying. They're telling me you're not there yet. There's nothing I can do with this. If you take it as you will, but that right there to me is because we have these limited beliefs. We think we've hit this mark. Oh, I don't necessarily feel this way anymore. I'm good. Or I released that ex-boyfriend, or we're good. When these are so ingrained that it takes really finding that root, that core void. And like you said, there can be multiple core voids. Mm-hmm. Because so it was dad rejecting you at one point. 2 days later, mom did. And then 3 days later, the kids at school did. And that, you see what I'm saying? Like there can be all these layers. So I want to say, Allied with Alchemy, Zach Graham, you're wonderful. I really do love this program, this service you provide. Guys, you can find him on Facebook. I'll have him below. You can also, if you just want to email Zach for a bit more about this program, because this is only an hour-long show, really. You can email him. I'll have the email below. And I really say, guys, even if you're not from the Chattanooga, Northern Georgia area, come on down in the event in September and be with Zach in person. Because he can do this remotely. He can sit in for you as for the muscle test. But it's a kind of a cool thing to do it in person. Very valuable, very valuable. Like I said, that's why I kept giving my example, because it really did help a huge process that I kind of knew was there, but I didn't think it had triggered so much in my life. And from your process. And it, guys, it was me doing all this stuff with my subconscious. I was like about 2 years later that I went, wow, okay, now I really have to address this even more so and sit with that baby and do this and that. And now I don't have, I am actually purely grateful for life. There you go, guys. I had never actually fully accepted complete gratitude for and appreciation for life until Zach. I met with Zach and did his program, and I worked through my own subconscious stuff on the, you know, on the back end of that, and then loved myself completely, starting from way back when, and now I'm happy to be here. I am so gloriously happy to be. So I give that's credit to you, Zach. That really is. I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to. I want to give credit where credit's due. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I'm glad that you got that.
Yeah, definitely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be saying goodbye. Remember, Zach Graham, you know, he's on Facebook, but he will even admit he doesn't post much, he doesn't communicate much, he's not a Facebook junkie like some people. Um, so he is there, but it's probably easier to email him. Both ways will be below. I love you all, and I will see you soon. Namaste.
Thank you.